The meeting to order of the December 11th California Athletic Commission here at the state capitol, room 127. And our Chair Carvelli's flight's delayed. He'll be here in about a half hour, so myself, Vice Chair Mary Lehman, will conduct the initial part of the meeting until his arrival. Dr. Williams, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Executive Officer Mr. Foster, would you call the roll to establish our quorum?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Lehman. Vice Chairman Lehman?
Present.
Commissioner Senior-Quidez? Commissioner Souder?
Here.
Commissioner and Dr. Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Ayala?
Here.
5-0, ma'am. The chair is on his way. We have a quorum.
Thank you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do some opening remarks since the chair is not here. This will be the vice chair's opening remarks. Seeing as how this is the end of our calendar year, I just want to do a short recap of all the great things that this commission has achieved this year. We've had the last 2 out of 3 have been record years for us for revenue, and we're on track to make this 3rd year a record revenue year as well. We have a stable budget, which is a huge achievement from not so long ago. Thank you to our executive officer for doing such a great job of that, especially with our technological challenges with budgeting recently. We've had a number of high-profile television fights this year and a number of big fights here in California that have been achieved through hard work by several people on our commission and our executive officer. Recently, we had a world heavyweight championship fight that most of us were able to attend, and it was a great event, well attended, and great coverage. That was the Wilder versus Fury fight, and that was a big event for California. As far as health and safety goes, as you probably know, our C3 Logics exam, we're getting baselines for assessing neurocognitive processing changes in our fighters, and we are on track to make our goal of having 1,000 base exams set up, and there are only about 1,200 fighters in California that are licensed, so we're very close to getting everyone with a baseline, and this should really be a huge step towards protecting our licensees. Along the same lines, our 10-point plan to address dehydration problems has been shared with nationally and adopted and praised nationally. It's been adopted by even international organizations, and our executive officer recently took a phone call from another country, and I believe it was Australia, who are considering adopting the 10-point plan or parts thereof. Most importantly, we believe that through our current implementation of the 10-point plan, we've identified fighters that are in danger due to dehydration for severe weight cutting, and we have made changes, and they've moved up in weight classes, and we believe that possibly has even saved fighters' lives through this plan. Importantly, we recently approved changes to our ratings criteria for ranking boxers, and we've included weight cutting as an aspect of that, and that is believed to be an important change to change the culture about dehydration and weight cutting in combat sports. Recently, for the first time, California licensed a transgender athlete, and we used the licensing provisions that this commission adopted a few years ago. And the MAC has done great work and been very important work with us on the 10-point plan, and we're hoping to get some funding so they can continue some of their research and important good work. Finally, since our executive officer stepped out, I will say important job he has done and all the hard work. I think we all realize how many hats he wears, and his job, he takes it seriously 24/7. And we're hoping to get the Chief Athletic Inspector position reinstated, which through some kind of glitch was taken away, and that will free up Mr. Foster to wear fewer hats and hopefully get some sleep. So those concludes our opening remarks. And our first item on the agenda is, we're going to do agenda item 3, which is approval of the minutes. Then we're going to jump to agenda item 9, partly because the other things we want to wait till the chair returns. So for approval of the commission meeting minutes, I know myself and Commissioner Shen-Yurkita submitted some changes. Were those included?
Ma'am, I have a few additional changes from Commissioner Shen-Yurkita. On agenda item 5, part 1, it should be Commissioner Shen-Yurkita provided additional historical background on. It should be additional. Okay. And then on part 2, assigned to a championship bout should be assigned to anything else. She added this way there was of keeping things fair. This should say assigned to a championship bout should not be assigned to anything else. Ma'am, is that your changes? Did I get them?
You have it there? It's on page. Oh, it's the not. Okay.
And the chair had one change that he relayed to me on page 5 of the minutes. The first paragraph up from the bottom where it starts, Chairman Carvelli stated he felt. In the last sentence of that paragraph, he stated that he doesn't think the commission is not should be struck. It's a double negative. That's all the changes that I received, ma'am.
Any other changes from commission members? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Do you want to call the roll for the vote?
Yes, ma'am. Vice Chairman Lehman?
Yes.
Commissioner Shen-Yurkita?
Aye.
Commissioner Souter?
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Ayala?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0, ma'am.
Thank you. We're going to skip a few items and go to agenda item 9, the Executive Officer's Report. And the first item is the budget update for the Support Fund, Neurological Fund, and Pension Program.
Yes, ma'am. I have updated numbers as of this morning. Like you mentioned before, Fiscal has not working, the new budgeting system, or it doesn't work as well as we'd hoped. To my knowledge, I don't think we've received a budget report yet this year for this fiscal year. So I've got the revenue numbers, and the revenue as of this morning for the support fund was $1,111,755. And then the numbers for the neurological examination account as of this writing was $7,609, and the Boxer's Pension Fund $251,291. Now, part of that was a transfer from Raymond James.
Okay.
Okay. The report on the pending regulations. We continue to work under the new process for the regulations, and Mr. Walker can probably give a better update on this, but we, Chief Legal Counsel at the department had a few changes. Staff has made those changes, and at this point it's back at DCA Legal. Is that your understanding?
That is not correct.
No,
Sophia, I sent it to Sophia. Sophia indicated that she would be making some additional changes, and I have not received it back.
Okay. Do you know if the changes are substantive that require a vote of the commission?
Ryan has recommended that some of the language in the regulation be changed, so it will have to come back before the commission to approve those additional changes.
And we don't have that now?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, this may be an issue that, with these additional regulation changes, this may be an issue that the commissioners may want to take up in a different agenda item, the sunset report. This particular reg package has been going on for how long?
Long time.
Mm-hmm.
Since the appointees, I think. And so, just for the sake of brevity, and for the sake of getting this done, perhaps it's worth, I mean, if we can get it done through regulation, fine. How long's it been? Years?
At least 2 years.
Oh, it's been more than that. I was working on it with Tracy Ryan when she was head of Ledge. It's just had some abbreviations, and it's not been DCA's fault. It's not been nobody's fault. I'm just saying we got to get this done.
So are you saying that perhaps it would be faster to do it as a statute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But obviously, the legislature the commission would have to raise the issue as a potential. I've had informal discussions with the legislative staff about various pieces of this regulation, specifically the assessment. But this, there's a lot of implications to this. This is an audit recommendation that we're trying to fill. I'm talking about this neurological assessment, and we're trying to get this done, and we can get it done through regulation. But this has been years.
Is there something that we can do today to vote on to help you perhaps approach the legislature, or do you want to talk with legal counsel and then figure out next steps?
And during our break, I'll speak with ledge staff. I think they're present in the room, and see how. If we can get this done as a regulation, that's easy. That's the most easy. But if it has to come back before the commission, luckily under this new process, the clock's not running.
That's right.
So that's helpful. But if the clock was running, I would be concerned at this point.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps once we get the language, we could maybe do a special telephonic meeting to approve without waiting till February.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ma'am, that concludes the update on the pending regulations. Part C, the Camo report, USA Boxing, USFL, and IKF. I think USA Boxing is here. I thought I saw Mike McAtee in the room. Mike, if you want to start.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you.
On behalf of USA Boxing, we're here and we submitted our report early. There's a few things we would like to add to that report, and I apologize. We just completed our national championships in Salt Lake City on Sunday, so we have additional information that we'd like to provide in regards to California boxers that participated, officials and coaches. Our plan is at the completion of the year, our first submission next quarter, we'll have a summary of everything we did in 2018 just because of the way the numbers, the dates fall, and then we'll also provide the first quarter report regarding 2019. We're excited our national championships was the first step for our lead boxers, and our lead boxers are over the age of 18 as they move to the Olympic trials. The Olympic trials will be held in December of 2019 for the 2020 Olympic Games. We had 965 boxers sign up. 174 boxers were from the state of California. Coaches, we had 521 coaches nationwide, 89 from California, and we also had 83 officials throughout the country, 7 from the state were from the California. We also had several boxers from the state of California that participated and were national champions. That will be provided in writing to you all, and we're excited about the quality and the character of the boxers that come out of the state of California. They're excellent representatives of USA Boxing, but more importantly, they're excellent representatives of your state, their clubs, and their families. Just a real quick summation of the activity in the state of California. We had 704 boxers, 2,112 bouts. We're very happy that we had 0 injuries reported. That's kind of the summary part. A few things that were brought up at the beginning. We, too, USA Boxing, next year will be starting a baseline testing and a pilot program in reference to concussion protocols. We have 53 LBCs throughout the country. The first part we're going to do is select 5 or 6 LBCs, or local boxing committees. One of those will be in the state of California, and I will work with the LBC presidents and Andy Foster in regards to the LBC and how we could start that protocol. The task force will be chaired by one of our doctors with USA Boxing, also with the USOC, and establish those baseline testings for our elite level boxers or over the age of 18. Interestingly, after the last meeting and the 10-point weight management system that you all implemented, we had been doing that for a while. The interesting part, we took it back to our elite teams, which are boxers over the age of 18, and many of them will probably turn professional because they're at the highest level. They were very supportive of weight management and the understanding. And one of the interesting parts that came about, we have certain requirements or markers in regards to when they're coming into camp, what their weights need to be by percentage. Overwhelmingly, the boxers themselves agree that when somebody loses weight and then blows up 24 hours later, that it's unfair. And they've actually said that they believe that to police themselves, that they would require, if someone would come to one of our camps outside the guidelines, that they should be fined. So I think it is a very good cultural change, in that the athletes themselves actually see the importance of weight management and how important it is. So I thought that was a neat breakthrough. And we explained to them that once they reach the highest level of professional boxing, that's going to occur, and they wanted to see it implemented sooner as opposed to later. And then lastly, the transgender boxer that competed here in California, I want to make note that the boxer competed as a USA Boxing alumni, competed in the 2012 Olympic trials. And then after that, the boxer reached out to USA Boxing. Lynette Smith provided that boxer with international rules in regards to start that process. So we're extremely proud of that boxer, and willing to work with other boxers as they move up through their own special journey.
Good dear.
Any other questions?
I had a few questions. Thank you for the report, and I do notice like 0 injuries, like across the board. If that's true, it's obviously very good to hear. But how are you determining what's an injury?
We use the injury reports that come across that are reported at the local level. If the doctor reports an injury, a report is filled out and sent to us, so that it's determined by the doctor that is working the bouts. We do have, we've had some RSCs, which are referee stop contest. Generally speaking, if the boxer, let's say if it was for not knocked out, but several head blows, and the referee stopped it, if that boxer would show signs of potential concussion or concussion that is reported. We are now tracking everything from hand injuries to shoulder injuries. We're also tracking nosebleeds. So it's a call of the medical professional on the ground, but we want accurate reporting, and all the doctors do know that.
Okay, so no nosebleeds at all in California.
Well, no, we don't regular nosebleed. We don't consider that an injury, but we have two categories: controllable and non-controllable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then why did the Southern California Boxing Club, LBC, lose so much money?
I think their purpose of when they their expenses that they as they report them, they don't charge as much for tickets or admission, and they're spending their dollars on membership. So I think that's a local decision that they choose to do. And the clubs are reporting that. So I think the purpose of it is to be able to put on shows, but they have a few shows that the LBC will fund completely, and those expenses, they just don't bring in the revenue. They're more important about giving opportunities to compete.
Okay. And any idea, looks like the border LBC has had very few bouts, and do you have an idea about that?
We've talked to them that it's just the amount of participation in border. I do know that they are trying to increase their competition down there, but currently they just don't have the amount of competition that we see elsewhere in the state.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, any questions from you, Andy? They're on.
No.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much for the great report, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Ma'am, next we have JT Steele from Camo, the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization. And just a few comments before JT starts. JT and I have worked very closely together, seems like this whole year, just on the sheer number of officials that were needed for the events that we've staffed. That one weekend, it seems like we had 165 people out in the field that weekend, or something to that effect, and it was 10 shows, and we were moving and we were sharing people and this type of thing. So we've had a good thing, and just to further elaborate on that is there's a crop of good officials coming up out of Camo, officials that James Beers, I believe, we've just recently licensed him with the temporary license. And then there's Chris Lieben, former UFC athlete, who has been working. Had the opportunity to observe him recently. He did quite well, in my view, so he's on track. We've got Frank Trigg from the Camo program. So as it relates to the farm system of officials, Camo has been proven to be successful in that regard. I'm very pleased to report that. That's not always the case with an amateur program, but having this new batch of officials is proving incredibly helpful. I will tell you, and it relates to this, losing John McCarthy as a referee has been much more troubling for this industry, I believe, than I would have initially thought. And this new batch of officials is going to be helpful to kind of fill that gap.
Thank you, Andy. We've had some, I appreciate that. The officials are...
You want to introduce yourself?
JT Steele, president of Camo. Thank you. And happy holidays, Vice Chair and Commissioners. It's great to be here. And it's been wonderful close to the year that we've had, and I appreciate those things that Andy said. We had the opportunity to work with Andy and the Commission on Golden Boy Promotions, which was really kind of a big night for Camo, because first of all, it was special because Golden Boy Promotions, it was their foray into the mixed martial arts world. And we're very grateful for Golden Boy for putting on 5 state title fights, amateur title fights on their undercard. And it was not only a great opportunity for a lot of people to witness and to see the high level of amateur athletes that we have coming out, like Andy said, it was a great opportunity for some of our amateur officials to be on a large stage and for you to have an opportunity to observe them and see their progress. And quite frankly, I think they all, including the athletes, exceeded expectations. So we definitely have some amazing talent coming up in California. We're very happy about that. I think perhaps even more notably, on that same card, it was the first time that we have drug tested athletes top to bottom, every amateur fighter on the card. Very grateful for the Contact Sports Foundation that made a generous donation to the Camo program for drug testing kits. And we started the program. We continued it last week. I'm going to be working closely with Andy to try to standardize our suspensions and our protocols in making something that is very consistent and predictable for the amateur athletes. But it was our goal to launch this by the end of the year, and we met our goal, and here we go. So I think we can be proud that California's, to my knowledge, is the only program in the state where we're testing amateurs, and I appreciate that very much. Other than that, we ended the year very strong. We definitely could use a couple weeks break here at the end of the year, just like CSAC does. So sometimes we look forward to these more quieter weeks in December. But you have had an opportunity to look at our report. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions? Did you plan to continue drug testing with Camo in your events?
We are completely committed at this point. So this is going to be something that is going to be part of our program for the future.
Okay, great. Good to hear.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Everybody's on notice.
Everybody is officially on notice.
Okay, thank you, JT.
Thank you.
Report.
Next up, we'll save John Frank for last. Steve Fossum. And again, this is one of those, at the end of the year, I think it's time to give some credit to the different work that we've done all year. And every kickboxing bout that we've had this year, I take a look at the initial card, and it gets sent to Steve Fossum for his thoughts. And he sends the notes back, and then I spit them out to the referees. You know, we get them out to the referees. So he and I work together on a lot of these Pro-Am cards. Got to work on the model so that it's cost effective for the promoters, much like we worked on the model with Camo 4 or 5 years ago when we did the restructure. Dennis Warner's asked me, is there something we can do about the money? He does the most kickboxing shows. We're working on that. I'm going to work with Steve on that. But just want to tell the commissioners that Steve Fossum has been proved very valuable in his assistance in helping make sure that these kickboxing matches are reasonable this past year.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate the words. Good morning, everybody. Happy holidays as well. And as Andy was stating about the pro and amateur events, I agree that there's a lot of things we could probably do to, right now we try to combine as many officials as we can, where we have the mainly CSAC officials working those Pro-Am events when it comes to judges and referees, so that way they can also do the amateur parts too. And when it comes to the inspectors, we kind of combine some of the CSAC inspectors along with the IKF inspectors as well. And since we pretty much usually always use a CSAC doctor, we already have the doctors that's appointed by Andy with the commission anyway. So, but there are places we can look at probably trying to cut some fees, and we have been looking at that throughout the year about trying to change some things there and make it a lot more feasible for the promoters to do the shows on. I do know we are upping the number of Pro-Am shows that are going on now. We're getting more and more of those, which is a big plus to the sport, obviously. So we hope to continue to see that growth as well. As far as any questions I want to bring up to you guys, I only have one real concern that some people have brought to my attention to ask you as a board. Years ago, there was a style of kickboxing called Sancho. It was also known as Chinese kickboxing. That we've had a couple of promoters that would really like to see that come back. One of them is out of the Bay Area as well, that wants to see a show. He wants to do a training show first to help the officials come on board. A lot of the officials that we have right now who are also CSAC officials went through the big courses that we had years ago in training Sancho officials. Some of you might not know what Sancho is. It's basically kickboxing with throws, whereas the action stops once they hit the ground. One of probably the most prominent athlete that's come out of that program is Kung Lee out of the Bay Area, who went into MMA from there, who did Sancho quite a bit, and they had quite a few Sancho shows. What we'd like to do is hopefully be able to start that on a trial basis to do one of these training events with him, and then eventually, if we can work with Andy to get the good to go on having one of the events. Dan Stell right now is probably the most proficient official with CSAC as well as the ICAP that knows the Sancho rules in regards to refereeing, because the scoring is kind of awkward on how you do it with Sancho. Once the throw takes place, the referee actually gives the points for the type of a throw that was done, and then the judges accumulate those points when they're given as well as scoring it as a 10-point must system, just like in kickboxing. We also have several other officials that are still with CSAC who went through a lot of that training to do Sancho, who've also said that they'll come on board and do shows with us if need be. And we have quite a few officials that also want to learn how to do the Sancho scoring, which is we do some stuff internationally with Sancho with the international part of the IKF, but it's kind of, in a sense, died out here in the States. MMA took over and Sancho kind of got dissolved into that, basically. But we do have some purists who want to get into Sancho and do that again, and we just like to, if possible, ask your permission to start doing some of these training shows and maybe bring it back as a sport, because it will create another event that some of the promoters want to do, and they're pretty excited about the idea of it. So as far as that goes, that's my one question to you, and if you have questions for me for our report, I'm welcome to take them.
Okay, let's thank you for bringing that issue to us. We always want to do that, consider expanding, our services and to the state. Does anybody have questions on the report itself? I will say thank you for the detailed medical suspension report. It was very informative to see how it all broke down. That was good. And just to clarify, Mr. Fossum got a copy of our policy memo that we drafted about refusing medical care.
No, I don't think I did.
It was we talked about it, I think, last meeting a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get it to you, but it addresses the issue of
the ones who don't want to take an ambulance
authority.
ride. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So if there are no questions on the report, going to your request to consider Sanjo, I think, well, obviously we're going to have to figure out about what it is and what it entails.
It used to be in the rules, and the last rules revision, probably because of the MMA taking place, I think is where it got out of there, basically. And I've talked with people over the years, do they consider it MMA or kickboxing? And especially the ones that are in the sport are adamant that it's more of a kickboxing because the action stops once the throw is complete, basically.
Okay. Well, I would suggest perhaps we include this on our agenda for our next meeting, and in between those times, you can work with Mr. Foster and Commissioner Shinyakitis. Do you know anything about this? Sure. Yeah, maybe figure out, do some kind of at least, oral and written report and recommendation based on an investigation. If we need more time, that's true. I mean, it took us a long time for pancreation, so.
Okay. They've asked if they can do a training event of this, and we didn't want to give them any yes or no until we talk to you guys, basically, about they want to be able to bring on officials to show them what the sport is all about, and they're doing it as a sport in their gym right now.
We obviously can't. It's a whole new type of thing until it's approved by us.
Okay.
Otherwise it would be, the gladiators. It's just
sure.
It's there's a slippery slope. We have to draw the line.
No problem.
Okay, but please work with Mr. Foster and Carl on our expertise of Commissioner Shenyakitas. And if anyone else would like to be involved, please let Mr. Foster know. But thank you for bringing us that opportunity.
All done? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Lastly, we have John Frank with the United States Fight League that does youth pancration that's delegated by the state, youth pancration.
Good morning, John Frank, United States Fight League. I submitted my report, but since then we've had two more events, but I can skim over the events that we had since the last commission meeting. We've had September 23rd, Northern California, 14 bouts, 0 injuries. September 29th in Temecula, 5 bouts, 0 injuries. And then October 20th in Ontario with 24 bouts, we had 1 elbow strain due to an arm bar. And we had a series of elbow strains after that. October 27th, Orlando, where we also hold events, 12 bouts, 1 elbow strain due to an arm bar. November 11th, up here in Tracy, 16 bouts, 1 injury due to arm bar. And just this last weekend, December 7th in Temecula, we had a lower back strain. And then December 8th, up here in Sacramento, we broke our streak, 6 bouts, no injuries. So Dr. Adam Brooks, one of the physicians who is doing the medical survey for USFL, presented a PowerPoint to the Association of Ringside Physicians. I think that was last month. It was at their annual convention in Las Vegas. And he said he got some positive feedback. I haven't really spoke to him in detail what that entailed, but his injury rate that he came was about 1.3%, which is fairly low, and we still have not had any concussions. So up to date, we've had 789 bouts, 1,596 athletic exposures, 0 concussions, and 24 injuries. And our injuries is something where the ringside physician dictates they need to either do some follow-up care or suspension. And being present at most of the events, I can tell you most of it is just precautionary. A lot of it is, these are kids, they get submitted, they cry, they hold the area where they got hurt, usually their arm or whatever, and then the doctor, is a little bit overcautious, so he'll give a suspension. They're generally 180 days or until cleared by a physician. And then I generally follow up, and usually by the next week, they're cleared, and they're training again, they want to fight again. So I think most of the injuries are minor, but they are noted just for statistical purposes. And also, we don't have concussions, but for these kids' future, the orthopedic is something that we need to focus on. And I think this is a good study once they're adults to see how maybe the sport affects them in an orthopedic nature, rather than most of the focus has been on neurological. But MMA is a lot of joint manipulation. So hopefully and the study is ongoing. Hopefully this can provide some good research information for the future of MMA, in general. So in addition to that, we're planning a national championship tournament, the first one we've really had since we became a delegated entity, because it's difficult. We need a big pool of participants to be able to fit them within a specific age and weight group. In the past, it was easier to clump them together, and you ended up having different sizes, different ages clumped, and now it's much more regulated and strict, so you need a bigger pool of candidates. And the promoter believes we're there. I believe we're there. We just have to draw nationwide, not just California. But we do intend on using the same rules and regulations within the tournament format that we've established, except we'd probably be using open mats, which is part of our rules and regulations. We just haven't done it yet, just because most of the promoters want to do more of a showy type event. But an open mat, you can put a bunch of them in a gym and run them at the same time. And then we do intend on sending a team to the IMAF World Championships. They just formed a cadet division for ages 12 to 17, and it'll be held in Rome, Italy, August 3rd and 4th, and we want to use this national championships to select a team. We haven't gotten the full rules yet from IMAF. They considered ours. I do know there's no head struts. I do know they're going to wear headgear and rash guard and shin guards, but the general set of rules we don't have yet. And you know, we hope that they would consider what we did, because I think we're more advanced than the rest of the world. But there was a lot of...
Can you repeat that, Mr. Frank?
Because I believe we're more advanced than the rest of the world.
Thank you.
But, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen over there, and so we'll see what they come up with. But I think the ultimate proof is if we can send a good team out there and we're successful, which I think we would be if we can get the kids over there, then maybe they'll, that says more than just articulating our rules. So recently, there's been a UFC docu-series titled The 25th Anniversary of the UFC, and there's like 25 10 or 15-minute short stories. So just to bring up that they had featured some of our youth female fighters in a recent episode. It was called Breaking Barriers, a story of Ronda Rousey, and it was based off an event that was filmed up here in Sacramento. So they showed some pretty good, they didn't mention us by name, but they did show some competition footage, training footage, and they had some interviews of our female youth fighters. And then finally, I just have our injuries up to date, and I added something to it because it was something that the medical researchers were interested in, the gender of the fighters. So I did add the age and gender of all the injuries. And I believe the presentation by Dr. Brooks articulated that it was evenly distributed between male and female fighters as far as injury rate. So that's all I have, if there's any questions.
I don't have a question, but I sit at these meetings, and these guys come in and talk about the activities in their respective areas, and I am just stunned by the volume of competition and engagement and opportunity for young people or aspiring athletes. It is really impressive. And I think at some point, if we had a press officer that, you know, could find his ass with both hands, we could do a marvelous article about what happens on a weekend in California with all of these organizations and what it means to the young people participating and the care that's extended to them by these organizations and the commission. I'm in awe of what you guys do. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
I think you a great idea. Let's maybe put that on your list.
And luckily, our press officer is here in the room, so we'll be able to, I'll get with him and we'll see if we can put something together. I actually have an update with the press office at the next meeting that we're doing something, a nice project that mirrors some of what Commissioner Souter said. On January 26th.
Yes, and that'll help our delegated entities, and, you know, particularly, as you said, getting the word out, getting, you know, growing the group of fighters, and now it's the national tournament and the international tournament, and can show the world that we essentially are the most advanced. Okay, Commissioner Shinyakides?
I have actually a concern, and John, so your delegation is for youth pancration, right? We know that.
Correct.
And a lot of this material is now going towards what is entitled youth mixed martial arts. There is a significant difference in a lot of jurisdictions between youth pancration and youth mixed martial arts. In fact, we sat down and we discussed this at length because we don't want that to be confused. And the rules that we came up with to limit injuries and things like that for youth pancration in California are very different from youth mixed martial arts. So I want to caution you, and maybe you can have a discussion with Dr. Brooks, and then also in your material as you move on, to please limit this to youth pancration, because I just don't want to get into a situation where the two start to kind of morph into each other, because your delegation is not youth MMA, it's youth pancration, okay?
And I understand, and you know, what
That is not youth pancration.
What we're regulating and what we're doing, the competitions are 100% youth pancration. Sometimes the people who are not in the industry don't know what that word means. So a lot of times the people making these presentations would say it's kind of the youth version of mixed martial arts. Although it's not mixed martial arts, the rules are exactly as we developed. It's pancration, but to, I guess, better describe what the sport is, a lot of people say it's the kids' version of MMA.
I think you need to be very careful how you word that, because it kind of isn't, you know, and one thing that was part of this delegation, part of what was very dangerous about this not being youth MMA and how you got this delegation was that this wasn't youth MMA. So I don't know, maybe we can work with you on how to how the verbiage should go so that people can understand it, and that you don't make this into youth MMA, because it kind of isn't, you know. But we can work with you on that.
The optics.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a public relation type of.
Yeah.
Because the rules are the rules. It's just how the
Right.
word that it's presented.
Right.
And you know, as I know, MMA sends up a lot of warning signals.
Right.
Because
especially for kids.
that's what people assume it's actual MMA, UFC.
Right.
So we
But you
do
get it.
use the word pancration. It's just the other people in the industry, and also like a marketing tool, some of the promoters
Sure.
may use that. So we'll try to clarify that and reinforce the word pancration, which a lot of people have no idea what it means still.
There's probably a way to do this that is good for both sides, right? Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Frank? I'd like to congratulate you on the exciting news of the tournament and then the international competition. And please let us know, or ask Andy specifically if there's anything we can do to help you out, either spread the word, or referees, some support for your important event in Ontario. And I'm glad you've gotten to this point where you're having, the tournament, because I know that was a big thing that you were trying to get to, and was a concern when we went to these unified rules.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Let me see. Okay. Are we through with agenda item 9?
Then we've got E and F,
Okay.
just the upcoming event schedule, just in brevity. The January and February are starting to shape up. They're starting to come together into what they're going to look like for our events. Obviously, the club shows aren't in yet, but the TV shows are kind of finalized. We have a world title fight coming to, I believe it's the Microsoft Theater there in the LA Live complex on January the 13th. That's on a Sunday. That'll start the year off with the boxing world title fights. It's an IBF fight. Shortly thereafter, we have Bellator at the Forum with the following of the heavyweight Grand Prix is Fedor versus Ryan Bader. And then also the same day, about 30 miles down the road, the UFC is booked at the Honda Center. I don't know who their main event is anymore. I did know, but it got moved. I have every belief that that event will continue. So if that happens, we'll have two fairly major mixed martial arts events in the same jurisdiction in close proximity. That rarely happens. And then we also have, it looks like we may have Mares coming back at the beginning part of February. I don't have a venue locked down. I don't think they have a venue locked down, but it looks like that's going to happen. And then also shortly thereafter, we're going to have some world title fights on a Fox show. Santa Cruz is going to fight again. Who he's fighting escapes me right now. I did know and it just slipped, but we'll have Santa Cruz again, and it looks like, to the best of my recollection, that's going to be at the StubHub Center. So those things, some of them may, and the MMA events are on your calendar, the others are not, but those are coming. I know that Top Rank's planning some things. I know Golden Boy says to get ready. Roy's already submitted all of his stuff. Thompson's going to be submitting, I'm sure. So I've been told we have some new promoters coming in, so it's going to look like the first quarter is going to be busy.
Great. You can get support you need. I think we had on the update on the C3 Logics. I think we skipped that.
Update on C3 Logics. Just the MAC met a short time ago, a few weeks ago, and we discussed this. We're at over 1,000 now, as you pointed out in your opening comments, of baseline tests. We've really been utilizing resources to get this project done. What started out as a hope for 200 tests for last year turned into we're almost 1,000 now. The inspectors are being deployed. We did almost all of Wilder Fury with that test. We talked about phase 2 once we get the baseline, and Dr. Williams and I are going to work together to make sure that phase 2 is implemented correctly. But I think the initial part is the baseline, and staff is working on getting that one done.
Good work. Did you have a question?
I just have a quick question. Do you have an update on the condition of the fighter who was injured a couple Saturdays ago?
In Canada?
Yes, sir. Adonis Stevenson, sir. To my knowledge, sir, he's still in a coma, sir. The last I heard from him, his wife, or it might have been his girlfriend, but his wife or his significant other tweeted out, "Please pray for Adonis." So that's the last that I'd heard about him, sir.
He was older, wasn't he?
He's 41 years old, sir.
Is that unique to have a fighter that old?
No, sir. I mean, Bernard Hopkins fought till he was, I don't know, 48 or 49. I don't want to say it wrong, but older than 41. It's a little unusual. It's not unprecedented. I feel like it's a little bit unusual to have a world champion that old. Certainly not unprecedented, unusual. But he was the world champion, and I don't want to tell you wrong, sir, but I believe he was ahead on the scorecards when he got stopped. I don't want to tell you wrong, but it seems like he was, and and the punch got him.
Yeah. Okay. We on your report a staffing update.
Staffing update. I don't know if she's in here right now or not, but unfortunately Heather Jackson is leaving me on Friday. It's her last day. It's a big loss to the commission. But, I told her when she came in and told me, she's done good work for this commission. she's done a good job for this commission. I've enjoyed having, and I've enjoyed watching her and being able to provide her various opportunities and her to take those opportunities and to excel. And Heather's smart. You give her something, if she don't know, she'll figure it out. I mean, like her and I were working last night, 8 o'clock on this thing, on this meeting. Okay? You can call her anytime, she'll answer the phone. And, you know, I told her, look, she's advanced about as far as the commission can go, as far as, you know, as far as I'm concerned. But I very much wish her well. I have hired Tricia Blackstock, the former director of the Arkansas Commission. She will be coming in as an analyst in the office. The supervising special investigator exam was posted on December the 3rd. It closes on December 24th, so we'll be taking candidates on that in the first quarter of next year. And then just regarding staffing, and this is a little bit budgetary, but it's a little bit staffing related, I'm going to go ahead and request the full $250,000 of additional appropriation from the budget bill language. A couple reasons. We've run a lot of fights this year. We're at record revenue levels, but record revenue levels indicate we've had a lot of fights and we're spending lots of money. Okay, that's first off. Second off, I'm not sure how much we're spending. So in order to make sure that
because of the fiscal problem.
Because of the fiscal problem. So I'm certain that we're not spending. I'm certain that we're not revenue negative, but we're sure we're not running a deficit. But I'm not sure. And you know, with this schedule like it is, and these people telling me we've got to get that budget bill language, and I'm going to be putting that request in soon. So that concludes my EO report. Welcome, sir.
So before I turn the mic and the gavel back to the chair, I personally wanted to say that that I'm sad that Heather Jackson is leaving, that she has done incredible work. She was on the commission when I first started. I know, but they're going to be accurate minutes. And she's always there when I personally need something done, and you write it any hour, day of night, and with a smiling face, and she has the skills and the commitment, and it's a pleasure to work with, and I will miss her both professionally and her friendship. And so on that note, I turn the gavel over to our chair.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman.
So we completed agenda items number 3 and number 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Good morning. So are we prepared to do agenda item number 4?
Sir, we're working on that one, sir, soon.
Okay. Agenda item number 5.
Yes, sir. Sir, this was an appeal from the kickboxing match on March 31st. I'm sure you read the background, but the bottom line is the timekeeper let the first round go long. Okay? It's a mistake. There's no excuse for the mistake, but it happens. It's human error, and he let it go long. Like a minute and 6 seconds long. Minute and 2 seconds, sorry. The argument is the fighter making the appeal won the first round, but in brevity, the argument is it would be nice if he was here to speak for himself, but basically the argument is, well, it made me tired, or it threw me off, or whatever, so it made me lose the next 4. Yeah, it was a mistake. It was a mistake, sir. There's no doubt about it, but I think it would be a miscarriage of justice to overturn this decision based on a mistake from a timekeeper and take away the win from the fighter that won the next 4 rounds and competed. And I might add, both fighters had to fight the same amount of time. It wasn't like one had to fight a minute and 2 seconds extra. So the playing field was level. The rules just weren't followed because of human error.
Do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation is the decision stand as it was laid out.
And no one is here to present on that issue?
No, sir, no, ma'am, the manager sent a message yesterday saying he was unable to attend.
Okay, so we have a motion, then we can do discussion. Commissioners, do I have a motion to, recommendation from our executive officer is a potential motion to not overturn this decision. Do we have a motion to that or any other motion, Commissioners?
So move.
We have a motion, Commissioner Ayala, to not overturn. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Shenner-Ketis. Okay, we can have discussion. Commissioners. Commissioner Ayala, do you want to add anything to your motion, sir?
I think everything's been said. I mean, it's pretty well stated. Plus, if you look at the rounds and how they were scored, it's pretty evident that, you know, the fight would have been won by the other opponent either way. So I think Mr. Foster articulated the issue well.
The other commissioners with comments? Okay, we can invite any comments from the public here, this agenda item. Stand up and be heard if you wish. Okay, seeing none. Before we take our vote, the mistake was a misunderstanding of the length of the rounds. Do we ever have 5-minute rounds for boxing?
Sir, this was kickboxing.
It was kickboxing.
It was 3-minute rounds for the kickboxing, and the round went like 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
Do we have 5-minute rounds for kickboxing?
No, sir.
So it was just a mistake.
It was a mistake.
Okay. Misinterpreted. Is there anything that you have done about correcting that?
Willie and I spoke at length about this particular case, and you know, for the sake of telling you what I did, I basically said, Willie, this can't happen again. This is causing problems for you know. And he said, look, I've worked for the commission for years. It's the first time this has ever happened. I won't happen again. So. You know, it was truly just human error. He just made a mistake, and we all know Willie Earl. He's one of our best timekeepers. He made a mistake.
Okay, got it. Okay, why don't we call the roll for a vote, please?
Can I just do
Sure.
Yeah, one comment. So just to make sure that we're applying the standard is that when there's a violation of the rules, that we will overturn it, or we can overturn it if the error, quote, affected the result of the contest. So I assume from our discussion that and the scorecards, we've determined that for whatever reason, or more likely than not, it did not affect the result of the contest. I just want to make sure we're applying the rule to remind the commission of the rule.
Great, thank you.
Chairman Carvelli.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Lehman.
Aye.
Commissioner Shenner-Ketis. Commissioner Souter. Aye. Commissioner and Dr. Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Ayala. Aye. 6-0, sir.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we move to item number 6 then? Review and approval of the California State Athletic Commission strategic plan. Mr. Foster, would you, for the benefit of anyone who's listening and those that are here, explain what the strategic plan is and why this is on our agenda?
Well, sir, the reason it's on your agenda, on the commission's agenda, is we have to approve a strategic plan per the Business Professions Code for our statutes. Our strategic plan was, our current strategic plan was coming to an end, so we needed a new one. And it basically outlines the goals that the commissioners set to try to work towards for the next 3 years, or the next several years. And why it's important, well, I look to it just often to provide various direction on resource allocation. There's lots of things the commission could do. If we had more resources, we could do lots of things, but the strategic plan allows me to basically decide what's most important and prioritize. That's one of the uses of the strategic plan.
Strategic plan was included in our packets and made available to the public. Hopefully the commissioners had a chance to review it and comment. I know that Vice Chair Lehman and I went through this and worked with staff to make sure we felt like it was accurate, correct? Okay, so why don't we have a motion if we are ready to approve or otherwise, and then we can go into discussion, ask questions, et cetera. So do I have a motion to approve this? Is this for the year 2019?
Yes, sir, 2019 to 2023.
And it'll be a strategic plan that we adopt for the next, basically 4 years?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I have a motion. Commissioner Shinner-Keita, we have a motion. A second?
I'll second.
Vice Chair, second. Okay, commissioners, would you like to have any comment? Commissioner Ayala, you want to start down there again, please? Do you have any? Great, thank you. Commissioner Martha, how about you?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I just have one very small, the 38 boards, at some point, like one board went away, or 2 boards went away. Isn't it 36 now?
Real estate is no longer under the umbrella of the Department of Consumer Affairs.
So maybe it isn't the, I don't know.
So it could have changed.
And the
Yeah.
dog board. Oh, that.
And guide dogs for the blind, that went away as well.
It was 36.
Yeah.
Well, but I thought it was over 40, and I think this is the accurate number. Okay, got it. There, yes, ma'am, there, yes.
You have comments?
Yeah, I thought we did a good job drafting it. And I thought the solid facilitators we had this time were good. Yeah, I didn't say that.
So what Vice Chair is referring to is we, at our, was it our last, 2 meetings ago in Los Angeles? Was that last one?
Last meeting, sir.
And we had, yes, that's correct. We had a great session with staff from DCA. Was it a consultant or is it that full-time staff that we were working with?
It's full-time, sir.
Full-time staff there, and I apologize for not thinking of their names off the top of my head, but we had a great session with them and spent a few hours going through, and then this strategic plan as a result. Dr. Williams, do you have anything?
Just one. As it lists the commissioners, I've never been smart enough to have a PhD, so it should be MD, not PhD, under Vernon Williams.
Right.
And that's a big thing, not a little thing.
Commissioner Souter, you have anything, sir? Okay. Before we, well, here's a chance for the public to stand up and comment on our strategery, if you would like. Please stand up, be recognized. Seeing no one wishing to speak. Come on up, sir. If you could state your name, please.
Israel Montez.
Andy, would you let Israel have the microphone? Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Like I said, my name is Israel Montez. I hosted an event called the Battle of the Badges. It's a boxing event, charity boxing event that I started here in 2003 with police officers, firefighters, military personnel. It was under the umbrella of the commission. They didn't get involved. They sent a representative there to make sure everything was run correctly because my main, objective is the safety of these fighters. So I did it for years. I've held it here at Memorial Auditorium. I've held it at Rayleigh Field. It's just a great event. It's a great charity event that I work with the Burn Institutes, the Toy Projects, and recently I've been doing under USA Boxing. And my question is there any way I could do this without USA Boxing? Because there's certain things that I had to change because I was regulated by the commission to do these things. And
Mr. Montez, hang on one second, sir.
Yes, sir.
We are on an agenda item on our strategic plan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Typically what we'll do toward the end of the meeting is we'll give the public a chance to address us on any items. Now, don't go away because you're sitting there, it's fine.
Thank you.
Just so we're clear, I think that unless the commission objects, we can listen to your comments and.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. This is not a Q&A though. I mean, you can give us information and you can work with our staff too.
Thank you.
So go ahead, please finish what you were saying.
Go ahead. No, my only question is, there are certain things, I love you working with USA Boxing. You have great officials there. Number one is the weigh-ins. This event was actually 2 events. We would do the weigh-ins on Friday night, which was great. We'd have the public out there and the media. But now, under USA Boxing guidelines, we have to do it Saturday morning. So it's, it's not, it takes away a lot. And the beards and mustaches, these are, police officers, firefighters, correctional officers, military. Some of these people don't want to shave their mustaches or beards. And I'm only asking to get an exemption from that. And they also like to fight without their shirts on sometimes, and they have to have their shirts on. And if we can do that, that's the only thing I'm asking. This is a great event I put on in Sacramento, like I said, since 2003. It's a great charity event, and I want to continue it here. We have a lot of people that attend these events, a lot of businessmen. Jim Cooper, Assemblyman, he loves these events. He's been a big supporter of this event, and that's the only thing I'm asking. I would love to continue to work with USA Boxing, but if we can just make some certain changes.
Have you been working with Mr. Foster on this?
No, sir.
From Heather, that's all. You talked to Heather.
Yes, thank you.
What was that? I'm sorry.
He spoke to Heather, was it last week?
Yes.
Last week, and she brought it to my attention, but the agenda had already been set for this meeting. And I thought after we get through this busy time, I can just work with you on this. And I'll have to talk to Spencer, but my thoughts are we delegate most everything to USA Boxing, but just because we do delegate to USA Boxing, I don't think that releases the commission the authority to regulate some of these charity amateur boxing stuff directly if it made sense for us to do so. So that's a question I'm going to get with legal about. So that's.
So you'll work with this gentleman and you'll report back to us at the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Just give me a call.
Okay.
Anyone else like to speak about the strategic plan? Okay. How about a roll call vote, please?
Chairman Carvelli?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Kiez? Commissioner Souter? Commissioner and Dr. Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Ayala?
Aye.
6-0, sir.
Great. Thank you all. Let's look at agenda item number 7, review and approval of the California State Athletic Commission draft sunset report. Mr. Foster, would you please explain once again what is a sunset report and what we're up to here?
Sir, the sunset report, the commission goes through sunset every at a periodic rate that the legislature determines. Last time it was 4 years. The sunset, sunset's
what you mean by that is we went to the legislature 4 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And we went through our sunset review process at that time.
And the commission requires legislation to continue, as do all boards in the Department of Consumer Affairs. And the sunset report is a report. It's basically a questionnaire, this report, that the legislature provided to the commission, questions that they had from staff. And this is their chance to answer their questions. And once this is approved, then I can turn this in officially to the oversight committees. Just for the commissioners' recollection, our oversight committees are a Senate and Assembly Business and Professions, and Assembly Arts and Entertainment. I was over yesterday, and these got printed. With your permission, sir, I can bring them, or if you'd like to have it, or it's in your.
Is it the same as what we have in our book?
It's the same as what's in your book.
Okay, so you can grab one at the end.
Yeah, if you'll pass it out.
You take one now, okay.
So I delivered the draft to the various committees yesterday. And this is basically the first, step in what will become the background summary of the Athletic Commission preceding the hearing that will start the hearing when we come to answer questions in front of the legislature early next year.
Okay, so this, just to remind commissioners, and Andy and I represented the commission. It's been 4 years, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I can't believe it, yeah.
Last time, and there was a bit more investigation and, I guess, scrutiny, because prior to this, all of us here and this Andy being here, you know, there were historical issues, there were concerns in the legislature, and so we went through that process, and I think, suffice to say, we're prepared, very prepared, to go through and answer any questions and that the senators and assembly members may have. The hearing is scheduled for early February, correct?
Sir, I haven't got the date yet. I don't think that they know precisely when it's going to be. But as soon as I know, sir, you'll be the first to know.
Okay. So again, this draft sunset questionnaire is really what it is. A response to their questionnaire was provided in our booklets and made available to the public. I think, once again, we had the opportunity with Mary and I to review this before as we review our agenda, before we post them, and went through this and made some corrections and edits. And so we can, I guess, Spencer, we're looking for a motion to approve the draft questionnaire to be submitted.
That's correct.
Okay. So why don't we start with a motion, and then we can get into discussion. Do I have a motion to approve this questionnaire, this response to the Sunset Review questionnaire? We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Somebody said second. You guys can figure that out. Thank you, commissioners.
We'll spar for it.
Sir, we start down on the right, on my right. Do you have any comments on our? You do not. Okay, Dr. Williams. Questions, comments?
A couple of comments that I thought might be helpful regarding one of the items, and Andy included in section 11 at the very back of the document new issues raised by committees, and one of them had to do with a recommendation by the MAC, the Medical Advisory Committee, related to engaging in research opportunities. And I thought if you could allow me just like a couple of minutes just to talk about this. So what we talked about at the MAC was this concept of the California State Athletic Commission engaging in and participating in research. And we outlined a few different things. Number one is why. Why would we want to do that? And there were several reasons. Number one is related to just volume. I mean, we've got a significant volume of events, access to fighters and combat sports participants and other stakeholders, unlike any other state in the country. Number two is permission. What did we have permission in this space because of the reputation of our executive officer, the reputation of our commission. I think people will listen to things that we say and that we put out there. Number three is there's a big need for it. If you look at any of the publications related to combat sports and health and safety, every single one of them identifies the fact that we need more research. More research is needed. Number four has to do with our mission and vision. Our mission is that we're dedicated to health and safety and welfare of our participants. Our vision is that we're a premier model for safety and fairness in regulated combat sport events. So that's the why. How we would participate in research, in my opinion, and some of the things that we talked about in the Medical Advisory Committee, I think we have a great opportunity to pursue some of this research using a kind of an updated format for research. And so many of you who are familiar with a lot of this kind of scientific research, you develop a hypothesis, you enroll people in a study, you take time going through that process, and then you analyze those results, and then you figure out if your hypothesis was true or not, and then you publish that information. And then you come up with another hypothesis, you can do it again. So this big data approach to research, I think, is really something that we should consider, where, yeah, we collect and we organize information. We're already collecting huge amounts of information, some of it through our C3 Logics program, Some of it with respect to other kind of information we know and collect already. It could have to do with, you know, the win and loss percentage of a fighter, what happens during a particular event or during a particular round, or rankings or punch stats or so on and so forth. We got access to video downloads. The point is that all of this information is in different buckets. And with big data and organizing the information appropriately, you can collect that information and let computers crunch that information. And so rather than having these individual discrete hypotheses that are, you know, researched one at a time, you can still do that, but if you have the data in the correct form, the computer can identify relationships that you may not have even thought of. And you can generate large volumes of information in a really short period of time. And so it becomes much more efficient by combining these different buckets of information. And then you can model different outcomes. And so you can be much more productive using this kind of big data approach. But that, of course, you know, requires some funding to do that and to organize information in a way that computers can use it. And so I think we've got these existing opportunities with data that we have already. We've got a lot of opportunities with other kinds of data using other kinds of technologies. But the point is that I think we not only have a tremendous opportunity, I think, and I put it this way at the MAC committee, we almost have an obligation to contribute to the fund of knowledge relative to combat sports by virtue of all of these things that are present here in California. And that's why that was added in terms of a new issue on this document.
That's excellent. Thank you. So would you like to add some more information, the things that you just outlined? We can certainly do that. There's not an issue. We can do an amended motion to add.
If it's reasonable and you think it would add to it, that's fine. I'm happy to. Yeah. But
I think it's great information.
Yeah, I think it's great information to maybe expand a little bit on it, because it's very helpful. And especially, you know, if you can identify, if you know of studies that maybe we can partner with, or, you know, like the
Right.
Dr. Kelly study, you know, or something like that,
Right.
we can partner with, or even if there aren't existing ones that we, you know, because that really clarifies things.
yeah, I just think it's a tremendous opportunity and something that, you know, we talked about in the MAC, and Andy said, okay, well, let me see how we can kind of formalize this, and I think this is that first step to that.
And I think if you wanted to add to it, and I'm just saying, perhaps, just a suggestion, maybe during lunch we could work together just to get some language, and you could hold this one and then we come back. I mean, it's up to you, sir, you're the chair, but that would seem like that would give Dr. Williams time to collect his thoughts and write it down. And
Well, question, it sounds like his thoughts are very well collected to me, by the way.
I mean, just
number two, we can amend the motion to include the information that he just outlined for us.
In the Sunset Review report, that's right.
I mean, we don't need to I don't think so, right?
That's right.
Great. No. So that seemed pretty collected to me.
No, it was.
Is this the kind of research that a university would join in attempting to finance and provide the manpower, womanpower?
So yeah, I think that there are a number of potential partners, and some of it has to do with kind of traditional partners like research from universities or from the government or what have you, having to do with kind of health and safety and science.
But academic area would do this in a university structure?
Well, I think that there's a number of different ones. I think that some having to do with health, i.e. orthopedics or neurology or neuroscience or that kind of thing. But, you know, I think that there's also some potential opportunity in other areas having to do with just social welfare and that kind of things. As we know, a lot of the combat sports participants come from less than advantageous backgrounds. We've talked before about trying to highlight some of the benefits of, for instance, our amateur participants in participating in combat sports. Same thing with some of the young professionals. So I think there may be more than the traditional approaches that, you know, that are in play here.
It's a great idea.
Particularly struck by the way that you kind of explained it as our obligation. It goes right to our mission, right, of health and safety. And then, so thank you for pointing out that we didn't put enough in here. This is great. I think this is great. I don't think, you know, we sometimes maybe talk confidently about the good work that we're doing, but people don't know about the MAC and what they're up to and how functional it has become, and what a great thing it is. So yeah, great. Thank you. Would you mind amending your motion? I think you made it, right, Commissioner?
Yes.
To include?
To amend the motion to include
What he said.
there we go.
What he said.
that information will be added to the Sunset Review report.
And we have a second for the amended motion?
Dr. Williams and I will work together to make sure I get it, what it is.
Perfect.
Okay. We can still, let's give, Vice Chair, do you have comments? We're working down the table.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I checked and my comments were included, so
Great.
thank you.
I have a question. These judges, is this in the right column? There's 90 delinquent judges.
What page are you on?
15 on the, in the booklet, and 16 on the, this one that we just got. You're 15, John, and Mary's 16.
I see it, yeah. Oh, I don't know the answer to your question, yeah.
What does delinquent mean? What does delinquent mean? They haven't paid their fees.
Can't all be delinquent.
It's like a form for like other boards. It might mean retired.
Yeah, that's the next one.
I know, but they might have put it in the wrong column.
Yeah, that might be I think that's supposed to be one column up. Okay. I don't think suddenly this fiscal year every judge we have has went delinquent. That's a mistake. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Well, it means they hadn't paid. Yeah.
Hanging out in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
One or the other. So that's a great catch. That's a good one. Yeah. This report will be read by committee staff and others. So Annie.
Or I thought maybe they had taken the test or something.
Sir, you know,
we can fix that. We don't need a motion to. That's a fix, right?
Sir, would you consider making the motion or the commission that made it an addendum to this so that Dr. Williams and I can work together or an addendum that we could turn in just a day or two?
Rather than reprinting the whole thing.
That's correct.
It could be done as an addendum. You don't need a motion for that.
Okay.
Okay.
These will be
You
attached
have
to it.
your motion to
Yes, sir.
include however you see fit.
I'll get it done, sir.
Sure, I'm sure you will. Martha, do you have some other comments?
No, I think it's really great.
Yeah. Commissioner,
Something
sorry.
more relevant to the 5-year plan or whatever it might be.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear the beginning of your question.
This concept of what he's been talking about, which is so exciting, should it be in part of our 5-year goals rather than something in the sunset?
Oh, the strategic plan, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I think really we should say at some point, we want to explore this and figure out how to explore it.
Excellent.
And put some timelines.
Do we need to go back and revise our motion to include this in the strategic plan as well? Could we do that?
There's in the strategic plan in that goal 1 of health and safety, 1.3 is research and analyze data on concussion management to further enhance and improve. We just didn't talk about the concept of
There we go.
publication.
That's it right there.
But it's
Yeah, so it would be appropriate to add it.
Excellent, so we can add, great, thank you, Commissioner, that was perfect. Great points. Commissioner Ayala? Oh, I saw it on the page and then I lost my page. There's just a slight mention of the transgender regulation. What page was that? In the strategic plan, I'm back and forth. Anyway, thank you. Page 34, issue 11. I don't know if anyone mentioned it before I got here, so forgive me, but talk about something that to be proud of. If everyone's not aware, but what took place this weekend at StubHub Center, the history was made.
Fantasy Springs, sir.
Fantasy Springs. Please forgive me. All these hours on an airplane has made me muddled here this morning, but at Fantasy Springs. And so I think everyone's aware of that. It made all the newspapers, something to be proud of in the sense that it was a great thing to do, the right thing to do, and a lot of work went into this. For how many years, you guys?
Probably at least 2 years.
Longer.
Hard work.
So 5 years of initial effort, a lot of work that I think that is something that we can all be particularly proud of, and thank you for all that.
And it really is. It's the
work.
cutting edge.
Yeah.
You know, we looked at every single transgender regulation in the world, and then we did our own research and updated it. It is probably the best transgender regulation in the world, I believe, first parts.
Proved itself out.
I worked with really good doctors. It wasn't just me.
What looked like a seamless, no problem activity on Saturday was the result of a great deal of thought and work and effort. And so I don't know if there's anything we need to add to that except to make that point, which is something, again, that I think we can be proud of. Okay, if there are any other commissioner comments, we can open up comments to the public with regard to our sunset review response to questionnaire. If you wish to be heard, please stand up and say, hey, John. State your name for the record, sir.
John Frank with the USFL. And just as a response to Dr. Williams, as far as that study, that's something that we'd be really interested in. You know, as mentioned, just our sport in general, it's difficult for public relations. People assume it's one thing and it's another. That's one of the reasons why we welcome that medical study. But in addition to that, you had mentioned like a social issue, and we are working with, and I had mentioned before, Kravitz Leadership Institute of Claremont McKenna College. It's a fairly prestigious institute, and they're building a program for us to build a character building program, and I think they've identified it, they call it the 3 R's: responsibility, resilience, and respect. And they're going to build a comprehensive program for us, but the second phase of it is going to be a way to evaluate the character of the participants. So I just wanted to put that out there. If this does proceed, I'd like to somehow see if we can include that in the study, and I would definitely, I'm sure they'd be more than willing to participate as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what I mean when I say I think that there are multiple facets in which we can kind of pursue relationships with universities and with other, foundations and what have you, because there's the athletic and medical aspect of things, but there's also the cultural and the social aspect of things. And so, yeah, I agree. So I look forward to that. That'd be great.
That'd be advantageous, because the two criticisms that we have is, one, it's too dangerous, and then two, it builds bullies. So the only way we can combat that is by doing some research and proving our point. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, John Frank. Would anyone else like to comment on Sunset Review Report? Any final comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Carvelli?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Lehman?
Aye.
Commissioner Senior Quidez? Commissioner Souter?
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Williams? Aye. Commissioner Ayala? 6-0, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work on those two reports, Andy and folks. I can see Mr. Ratner, Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Jones, Mr. Lynch here. Do you want to confer with them to see if they're prepared?
Yes, sir. If we could take a
2-minute break.
Maybe 5 minutes?
5-minute break.
Okay. All right.
5-minute break.
Hello, sir. Hey. How are you? It's good to see you. Glad to be here. Glad to see you.
We should try to mention this at some point. Andy put a lot of that work into it. And I didn't mention it in the opening remarks, so I did not. So yeah, I don't know if we can add this or bring this for the sunset review. It's kind of a big deal.
We can give it out to the legislators.
Yeah.
Sure. That's a good. Did you make any comments?
From me? Yeah. Opening remarks, I took it. You give me enough notice, I changed hats. So budget, record revenue, stable budget, TV fights, and a big California fight. great fight. I was non-competitive. See-through logics, 10-point plan adopted internationally, ratings criteria, transgender, all the good work for the MAC, get funding, and foster good work, reinstate chief applicants. Trying to be you, it was hard, but I got the gavel. It was
No, I am
Okay.
supporting this application. This is my recommendation.
We are back from our short break. We are going to now address agenda item number 4, review and possible action regarding Mr. Jonathan Jones' mixed martial arts license application. It's agenda item number 4 in our packet. We have some documents here. Mr. Foster, turn it over to you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here to support this man's right to make a living. This man, I'm just going to go through my notes, sir. My recommendation right off the bat is this man gets a license, a temporary license while he provides a community service plan that's laid out to the commission for some various things. But ultimately, I want this man, my goal as your executive officer, is this man walk out of this room and he can fight Alexander Gustafsson in 2.5 weeks or however long it is in Las Vegas. And Mr. Jones needs to be here. Mr. Jones is fulfilling what we talked about, I believe it was earlier this year. He's back. This process has not been ideal. It's not been ideal for this commission, and I don't believe it's been ideal for Mr. Jones. Nor do I believe processes like this has been ideal for any of these athletes that we've had to deal with over the years. It's a tale of two systems. It's the systems that are delegated to this commission, and then there's a system that's inherent in the UFC's anti-doping program. To be clear, sir, ma'am, commissioners, I'm very much in favor of anti-doping protocols. I'm very much in favor of that. That's done a lot for the sport, and it's to the credit of the UFC for cleaning this sport up. Okay. My view is that this commission has sole jurisdiction over what happens here. This idea of dual jurisdiction, I'm not sure exactly where that came from, but we went along with it. I, as your executive officer, recommended to this commission that you go along with it. I was wrong about that. I should never have done that. Do you know why I recommended to this commission to revocate that license? It's because I feared that they were going to give Jon Jones 4 years. That's what I was concerned about. I thought that would be a gross miscarriage of justice. 4 years in mixed martial arts is a death sentence. He might as well go be a computer programmer or something. Ultimately, after the science and the findings came out, and there was a strict liability, Mr. Jones would have been punished under this system or the USADA system or whichever system. He had it in his system. How it got there is debatable, and the levels is very, very, very low. I'm not here to debate that. We debated that last meeting, the science and all the things behind it. I'm talking about the process, how we got here. This should have been dealt with and done at the last meeting. Instead, Mr. Jones has had to spend considerable resources going through a process that this commission has sole jurisdiction on. And you know, ultimately for Mr. Jones or for other athletes, it's whichever punishment's worse. If this commission had laid out 3 years and USADA had came back with 15 months, Mr. Jones would be sitting out 3 years. Or vice versa. I recommended this commission yield executive discretion to a third-party drug testing company financed and paid for by the UFC. And the UFC had the best intentions in the world in doing this to protect athletes. So there is no fault from their standpoint. The program needs tweaking. It's my view, and I explained this to the USADA yesterday. I spoke with them. They called me. Collect the urine, send me the results. I'll take it from there. Don't adjudicate this commission's athletes. We don't need that help. We don't need that help. We'll do it. We'll punish these athletes. These athletes are sole jurisdiction. And just to reiterate that point, Commissioners, I'm going to read 18.640. The Commission has sole direction, management, control of, and jurisdiction of all professional and amateur boxing, kickboxing, and all forms of full contact mixed martial, including mixed martial arts. That's California. Let me read you Nevada. The Commission has vested its sole direction, management, and jurisdiction over all contests or exhibitions of unarmed combat. Let me read you New York. The Commission shall have, and is hereby vested, the sole direction, management, control, and jurisdiction over all authorized combative sports. I read you these to make this point. I recommended, as many executive directors across this country have, that we yield executive discretion that you hold, and we allowed a drug testing company to adjudicate Mr. Jones, and they came back with their findings. I just think the process needs to be tweaked. For one thing, and for the record, I've looked at the stuff. I understand some people may disagree. I respect your disagreement. I do not think Mr. Jones is intentionally a doper. I just don't believe it. If he is, he's the worst doper in combat sports. He fails the one test he knows is coming. I've said my piece. My recommendation to this commission, if he turns in his fine, is that Mr. Jones be allowed, granted a temporary license, be removed from the suspension list so he can make a living and go compete in the state of Nevada.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Before I ask for a motion on this matter, I think we see if anybody else that you wish to present any information on the team that's here behind you would like to speak to us. So whether it be Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Jones, Mr. Radner, does anyone else would like to have anything to add? Okay. Before we also ask for a motion and begin discussion, do we have the fine payment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones is prepared to bring it to you, sir.
Well, we can give it to you, and you can tell us that you have it in your possession, that the funds are good, they will be made good, and you can describe it to us, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I have a check from Jon Jones for $205,000 made out to the Commission.
On bank?
Bank of America.
Okay. With assurances that the funds are good, and the Commission will recoup its, as you put it earlier, on behalf of Mr. Jones, considerable resources that we've all spent on this matter.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this check doesn't pay anybody. It reimburses the state for its time and effort, so we're clear about that. Okay, do we have a community service plan that you can tell us about?
Yes, sir.
Either one of you can tell us what you're willing to.
So my plan is to do community service at Gracie Baja in Anaheim, California, and also work with the Gracie Baja Youth Group in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Why did you pick them?
My professor is one of the higher ups at Gracie Baja, and he said we can use it. We have very large youth programs, and it's right down your alley with mixed martial arts and everything. Kids respect who you are and things.
When will you do this?
You tell me when. I was hoping maybe after the fight for the one in Anaheim, and I can do before the fight for the one in Albuquerque.
We can complete this maybe by the first quarter of 2019?
Yes, sir.
We commit to that. You will commit to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, those are the items that we discussed that Mr. Jones would bring with him, that check, that commitment. So why don't we now start our discussion, if we could. So if we could entertain a motion to Mr. Foster as a motion to, why don't you state clearly for the record one more time, please?
I would like the commissioners to authorize a temporary license for Mr. Jones and to remove him from all suspension lists so that he can make a living.
Do we have a motion to do so?
Also.
Commissioner Shannon-Akita's motion. Do we have a second? Second. Commissioner Ayala, we have a second. Okay, we can start with commission comments. This is a Q&A, whatever the commissioners so desire. Who would like to begin? Commissioner Souter, do you have any questions? Dr. Williams?
Just real quickly, in terms of the community service, what's the nature of the activities that you're going to be doing? Is it speaking to kids or working with them, mentoring, what?
I was thinking maybe speaking to the kids, and I wouldn't mind working with them as well. Maybe talking about dream chasing and anti-bullying. Me personally being from a inner city, and took a lot of dream chasing for me to get to where I'm at. So I want to just let the kids know that no matter what their background is or where they're from, that they can do it too.
Dr. Williams, would you consider discussing this with Mr. Jones prior to maybe coming up with like the things that he's going to talk about and the subject matter?
Sure, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
You will please get the information from Mr. Foster or directly from Dr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
And be in touch with him? Okay. I think you'll find it a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, I've done things like this before, and it definitely helps for sure.
And I'm also working with Dr. Williams.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. But you're right as well. So. Vice Chair Lehman.
I defer to Commissioner Shannon-Akita's, and then if appropriate, I'll follow up questions.
Absolutely.
Would you also consider working with Mr. Foster to maybe work out another maybe training session or something with another foundation that this commission maybe works with?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really happy to see you come back to fighting, and not just because you are immensely talented, but because I know you want to leave your legacy. And that might very well be to establish that you could be the greatest of all time. But we know that that does involve having to win a fight, unquestionably, fighting with your God-given talents. And I know you've said that you're happy USADA established that you didn't do this intentionally in your last test and all of that, but you and I both know that there is a large number of people that still have some doubts, right? And they are out there, and it's not just a little bit of doubt, but there are people who have like a serious doubts over this. And so I, for one, would like to put those doubts to sleep and to put them away once and for all, and for people to believe you that you are that talented and that you are the greatest of all, and that you can win a fight just clean, and that this is Jon Jones, and to put those doubts away once and for all. So I have this idea, and I'm gonna just put it out there and see if you'll agree to it. And that is for the next, I don't know, 3-4 months, whatever it is, if you will agree to sign up to for the voluntary anti-doping agency. And if my colleagues will agree, maybe the California State Athletic Commission can pay for it, and you belong to VADA for the next 4 months, whatever it is. And for my colleagues' benefit, I think 8 tests over the next 4 months is like $18,000. 10 tests is like $20,000. It's Dr. Margaret Goodman. And of course, we would have to vote for that, vote on that. But You don't have to agree to it, but if you will agree to that, then there will be no question. And if, you'll sign up for it within the next few days, through the next fight, then there will be nobody that will doubt that you are the clean fighter. You understand what I'm saying?
I think so. So what you're asking me to do is pretty much do just more testing, pretty much?
To VADA, which is voluntary anti-doping. They're a neutral third party. You know what I mean? Because there is a cloud of credibility over this whole process, as Andy has said. But you would agree to it. And like I said, you don't have to do it. But this would once and for all just clear that up.
Would I be paying for the testing?
I'm sorry?
Do I pay for each test?
No. And my suggestion is that, maybe out of the fine or whatever it is, that if my colleagues will agree to it, that CSAC can pay for that out of, but I think we would have to vote for that.
Would you like a minute to discuss that with your folks?
I just ask if you confirmed with...
Can you state your name for the record if you're going to ask questions?
Yeah, sorry, it's Howard Jacobs. I'm just asking, have you confirmed with VADA that they would accept John? I know that they used to have regulations about fighters who have tested positive before, and they have confirmed it? Okay.
You're shaking your head yes, for the record.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. There are people listening.
Yes.
There are people listening, folks.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Jacobs, your role here today is?
Counsel for Jon Jones.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an idea.
Okay.
If you'd like a minute to discuss it with your folks, Mr. Jones, we'll give you that, or you can tell us now.
Yes, sir. Could we get a minute, please?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Take a couple minutes. Go ahead. 2 minutes. As quick as you can. Before anyone else leaves, Heather, you walked out of the room to be kind enough to get me some coffee to revive me for my travels, and you missed Vice Chair Lehman. Do you want to repeat what you said? Would you mind?
Well, we should all say.
We could all, on behalf of all of us, yeah. So, well, just come on up for a second.
Yeah. Come on over, sit, be roasted here. Be roasted, okay. Ms. Heather Jackson, you've been with the commission for approximately 7-8 years?
About that, yeah.
Okay.
Combined.
Yeah. 7 to 8 years, right?
I know. I
discovered that the secretary general. And I was telling how I think Andy spoke about how we've seen you grow, and I have too, from it seemed like smaller tasks to greater responsibility. And I know Andy relies on you extensively, and has praised your intelligence and your work ethic to work late evenings. And I know personally that when I need something done, you always step to the plate, and you always answer the emails no matter how late at night it is, and it's done right and with a lot of integrity. And you've done things such as meeting me outside the stadium for the fights, to revising documents in time for the meeting, and I entrust you with my credit card to buy lunches.
How about a motion that that you can make that we're all going to miss you and wish you the best?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We have a motion on that?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you
all those in favor?
Yeah. So you have fans here. We'll miss you, but we are happy that perhaps you're going to have other opportunities to grow and advance, which you deserve. And I will miss you personally as a friend as well.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Heather. You're not going to volunteer for VADA, are you? Good.
Giggle, giggle. She'd have to.
Okay, Mr. Jones, we are back. Mr. Jones is back in the table.
And if it's okay, I think I can answer the question. John is agreeable in principle to the idea. We do want to look at the VADA program a little bit because for me it's been a couple of years since I've looked at it. We want to see the details on it, but in principle it sounds good. We just want to see what their program is.
Mr. Foster, are you okay with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it would take, I mean, it would take, just in the way the state government works, it's just not quite as easy as just exactly. Commissioner Ayala has nailed it right there. It's not quite as easy as just writing a check. If the commission paid for it, would have to go through a process. To answer your question, sir, yes.
Okay, let's go back to Commissioner Ayala. Do you have more comments, Commissioner Martha? Do you have? Okay. Commissioner Ayala, and we'll get back to this in a minute.
I actually wasn't going to make any comments, but so I appreciate you being here. But based on the statements that were previously made, I think obviously there's going to be a process involved. So this is the first I hear this, and knowing that sometimes the state process can be a little bit longer than anticipate. Maybe just a commitment, a verbal commitment, while we also look within our own jurisdiction as to what the feasibilities are, as to your point, in terms of purchasing this, but also looking at the overall impact from policy perspective. Obviously, we've got one fighter here that would apply to this particular process, but does that either open a can of worms for what we're expected to do for other fighters that are in this kind of situation? But on the positive side, whether this could be a pilot of some sort that enables us to be more efficient in terms of the enforcement piece of these types of situations. So in summary, what this all means really is that I think we really need to get a little bit more background. Obviously, you've done your homework, but I'd appreciate a little bit more background and information as to, again, what it takes to get there and the pros and cons of going in that direction.
I mean, I think it's telling in some respects, even though we're not there yet. I think it's telling in some respects that Mr. Jones didn't just flat say no. Is that not telling?
Well, let me add something here. I don't know, quite sure what your point is there, but let me help, because obviously we spent a lot of time discussing these matters, and there are other matters that have been worked out, including a fighter recently. Can we talk about the recent VADA? No, okay. So we can't talk about details, but I can tell you that there is precedent here. And the fighter did volunteer to do this, and we also worked out financially for that fighter as part of his fine, his or her fine, to take care of the testing. We're not looking to be punitive in that sense. So your questions are right on point, but there is precedent. You're just not aware of the details, number one. Number two, you mentioned to me that you wish to include VADA as part of the, you want to include the condition to, you were explaining this to me.
Yes, sir. In the future on our charging letter.
Our charging letter, right.
A charging letter that Mr. Jacobs has really made me review many, many times. And he has made me better with that charging letter to include potential anti-doping agencies, VADA being one, on that potential charging letter as a potential. And I'm glad you asked the question, sir, so the public could understand what we're talking about. Is the Commission's actions to do public policy better, to protect the public better, or is it to be punitive to these athletes? Well, obviously, in these kind of cases, it's a little bit of both. But I think the idea that you're bringing out, sir, is the idea, and the Commissioner Senior-Quidez is, what's best for the public? And really, in this case, and in cases like this, what's best for Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones' reputation has been damaged by this process. That's what I believe. I believe it's been damaged. You see all these articles and all these things, and nobody really wants to see what happened later. The damage has already been done. And you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. And so, in the future, like you're talking about the charging letter.
What do we need to do to adjust the charging letter to include that option?
I've already done that, sir.
So it's there?
It's there.
Okay, so that's a good thing.
It's a good thing, sir.
So that's what I was trying to get out of you, to let the
Yes, sir.
commissioners know that that's now there. I also point out that I think it's another demonstration of your integrity that you're willing to admit that you were wrong about the USADA process. Good
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I will never come to this commission again. Basically, I talked to USADA yesterday, and to be frank with you, I told them, and they were very nice to call. It was a cordial conversation. We talked for a long time. I need USADA to collect the urine, send me the results. I'll take it from there. That's what I need. I don't need their adjudication process on licensed athletes that are trying to make a living in this state. I'll let the commissioners, we'll handle that part.
Good. Commissioners, any other comments before I give the public a chance to comment?
Well,
you can.
We are trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube for him a little bit.
We are.
So this is the whole, VADA thing. So to the extent that we can, we're going to try and put the toothpaste back.
His reputation's been damaged, in my view.
So, anyway.
Okay, here's an opportunity. Well, let me ask the question of the commission before we have the public comment. Are we willing to, or do we need to adjust the motion to give a temporary license to Mr. Jones? Do we need to adjust to, with this VADA agreement in principle, to reimburse or pay for or offset with his fine the cost of the VADA testing? Commissioner Shinner-Kiedis' idea.
No, I know. You can do that. Yes, add it in the motion. That part of the $205,000 fine will, Mr. Jones will be permitted to pay for that.
Let's see how this goes. We are not agreeing.
So, Commissioner Martha, are you willing to adjust your you made the motion, correct? Mm-hmm. To do that, but that this check has to clear and that we can reimburse?
Yes.
Okay. So please make it your new motion, if you would. Andy?
New motion.
You can just amend it by adopting what I just said.
Yes.
And that would do it.
Okay, so we have an amended motion.
And the second accepts that?
Second, Dr. Williams. So Jones, you're following what we're doing. You asked about payment. Well, you're going to get reimbursed by the commission for those, however you can work it out with Mr. Foster. So it won't be additional funds coming out of your substantial fine that you just paid. Okay?
Can I just clarify on the VADA piece? I just want to make sure it's clear that everyone understands what we're saying. We're agreeable in principle. Of course, the devil's in the details. We need to see what exactly it is that we're agreeing to.
Of course.
As far as what VADA is testing for, when they test, what their restrictions are.
Well, Mr. Jacobs, I would expect in a normal course of human and business and interaction that you would do that. You'd make sure that the process is a fair and clean process.
Okay.
We think you'll have the best shot with VADA because of the reputation they've developed, and there's a process in place, and other athletes are doing it successfully.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. Here's an opportunity for the public to comment on this motion to provide a temporary license to Mr. Jones. Yes.
Yeah, before we do that, I have a question to clarify. So is this a voluntary thing that we're taking from Mr. Jones to agree to this? And let's say that they look at the details and they say, no, we don't want to submit to it. So we're still going to give the license?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. That's my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's not a condition precedent. No.
He doesn't have to do it.
He doesn't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thoughts.
Commissioner, I would suggest that, in my humble opinion, right now I'm giving my humble opinion, it's better if Mr. Jones voluntarily decides to do this and is not compelled to do it. Do you understand? Okay. We're really hoping that you're going to work this out and do this for your own sake. I think Commissioner Martha made it clear to you what's at stake for you here. Okay. All right, here's an opportunity
Thank you.
for members of the public to comment on this matter. Stand up, be recognized if you wish. That's it? Wow, okay. Commissioners, before I call for the vote, do we have any other comments? Commissioner Allen.
Just clarification, because there was an amendment to the original motion, and if it's not conditional, then there's really not an amendment, because this is all voluntary anyway.
That's,
and then, is it just, so the amendment's only on the reimbursement? Got it. Okay.
so the commission would actually be lowering the suspension amount. I'm sorry, the fine amount, yes.
Since the amendment was not restated, it was unclear. So,
For clarity's sake. Before you call for the vote, final comment for you. We try to stay on our mission. Our mission is the health and safety of athletes and the public, okay? I think that what we have a motion here for you, sir, covers that. It goes along with our mission of health and safety to get you back in the ring, to fight cleanly, rebuild your reputation, work with Dr. Williams, do something for the fight community, and it could be a good thing for you and for our industry. So with that, would you please call roll call vote?
Chairman Carvelli.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lehman.
Aye.
Commissioner Senior Quidez. Aye. Commissioner Souter.
aye.
Commissioner Dr. Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Ayala.
Aye.
6-0, sir. Mr. Jones is authorized to have a temporary license and to get off the suspension list.
Thank you, guys.
Train hard.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Make sure you guys watch.
Are we going to take our break for lunch?
Yes.
We are taking a break for how long? 30 minutes?
No. We never make it back.